Hey there. Welcome, everyone, to the Tesla Motors Club podcast. I'm Lewis.
And I'm Mike.
On today's episode, we are going to be covering some interesting stuff. We've got Doug, one of our producers and admins from Tesla Motors Club in Vietnam, to talk about the VinAI conference. We got some updates on the Dojo supercomputer for Tesla, some new Lucid news and them competing with the Plaid, and a lot more. So episode 19 starts now. Alrighty.
All right.
We are back. How's it going, Mike?
I'm doing well. We have to be good boys. We've got somebody watching us today.
That's true. Very special guest, Doug. At Doug on the Tesla Motors Club, admin, producer of the podcast, and currently in the middle of the night in Vietnam.
What is it, like 2 a.m.? Is it like 2 a.m. there right now, Doug?
It's 2:00 in the morning.
Hardcore, man. Hardcore.
So our first fun and exciting topic, the VinAI conference. How about you tell us a little bit about who VinAI is, because I'm sure many folks may not know, and a little bit about what you saw there.
Yeah, so, well, just a little bit of background. I have a friend, Annie Lien, who is who works in AI and autonomous vehicle stuff. And she actually gave a talk at our conference back in 2016. And I was introduced to her from Chelsea Sexton. And Chelsea was helping me out. And I said, hey, I want someone to talk about autonomous vehicles. And that's who she suggested. And she's cool and became friends. And so she invited me to this conference. So VinAI is part of VinGroup, and VinGroup is a large company here in Vietnam, which has a bunch of subsidiaries and a whole bunch of different fields. I think, probably most of their money is in real estate, like that Vin Homes. Actually, I'm staying in an Airbnb that's in Vin Homes right now, which is right across the street from Vin University, which was also built by this Vin group, so they're in education also, and the conference was at Vin University, and they also have VinFast, which makes EVs, and they're going to be launching an EV. They have cars here in Vietnam, and they're going to be launching an EV in the U.S. this year. So yeah, it's just a big company. Does a lot of things, and about 3 or 4 years ago, they decided to start a branch that does artificial intelligence, since there's like nobody in Southeast Asia doing that. And
Interesting.
And so, very quickly they, are doing things that are, I'm sorry, I just noticed my microphone is down here.
Yep.
They're, very quickly they're making lots of advances, and they have partnerships with, a lot of the major universities, and so they had this conference that was great. I could go on and on about the conference. They had, speakers from, all the big places from Google and.
So is it like a general machine learning and AI conference? It wasn't specifically to cars, but you kind of you got to see some cool hands-on car stuff.
Right. It was a general conference, going on a variety of topics, fairly, they had stuff that got pretty technical,
Sure.
And we had their speakers from like AMD and just sort of the whole sort of gamut of what you would expect. And it was a hybrid conference. Some of the speakers and panelists came in remotely, and it was available remotely also. But I was lucky enough to be able to come in person, which is great. And I'd never been to Vietnam before, and it's hot here. It's hot and humid, but it's great. The people are great. The food is great. The food's amazing. And cost of living's relatively low here. The food's amazing, and then I get a great meal for the equivalent of $5 or so So it's
so always a perk of international travel. Yeah, if you go to the right places.
Yeah,
that's great. So why don't you tell us a little bit about, I guess it was mostly around driver monitoring systems, or what was the
right? Well, so I
main
did.
autonomous thing?
I saw tons of stuff, but I guess what I'd want to try to talk about was I got a individual demo from VinAI. So they're working on a couple things, and I will show a little bit of it. Let me just get some images together I have here. So two main things, I guess. One was a driver monitoring system, and another was a sort of a visualization, a driver visualization system. So why don't I just start with, I'll start with the visualization system. So what they have effectively is a, let me see if I can share this in a way that looks reasonable for our online viewers. So they have a car, and this is sort of an engineering car. And this is one of their VinFast cars, but it's only for the Vietnam market. So the car that they're launching in the US is more of a upmarket thing, whereas this is a much cheaper car for their domestic market.
Sure.
But what they have is cameras. They have 4 main cameras on the car. There's one here on the rear of the car. And
kind of like dead center in the rear, kind of similar to where we have like our backup cameras, right?
Yeah,
kind of pointing more down, maybe.
And it's a much more wider angle camera.
Okay.
And then they also have them here on the mirrors, and
side
they're looking
mirrors. Okay,
kind
that's
of
interesting.
to the side. But even though it looks like it's down, I mean, it's got such a wide angle, it's getting your full side view.
Okay.
And that rear camera, even though it sort of seems it's pointing down, it's getting a full rear view, but it's also getting what's right next to the car also.
Right.
And then there's one in the nose. I mean, this one is the stock position. They were doing some experiments with a position further up. So this is like a 3D printed sort of mount.
That's interesting.
To do some experiments, but it's right here in the nose, right in front of the car. And what an advantage that is, because so that camera can actually see better than you can, right?
Right.
Like when you're approaching an intersection.
It's not looking over the hood,
It's not looking over the hood, and when you approach an intersection, the front of the car can already see what's coming around the corner, as opposed to like when you go, you're kind of
right.
having free, so you can.
And how wide of a view did you?
So the spec on the horizontal view was almost 200 degrees. It was 198.
That's amazing.
Wow.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
Wow.
So it's right up front, and it's it's seeing both left and right.
Something maybe Tesla could benefit from here, right, is currently when we have to do that whole creep forward, right? We have the cameras above where like the rear view is, and then we have the cameras on the pillars. So like for your car to see where it's at going into traffic, it's really got to creep forward a bit more so than a car with a camera here would necessarily have to do, which is pretty cool.
Right.
It's a good idea.
Right. So, hopefully someday Tesla will update their cameras and stick one in the front. I was always thinking they would need one like on the 2 front corners, but actually, I mean, you could get away with just one with a really wide angle, like right on the nose.
It's a clever idea.
Right. So what they're doing here then is using artificial intelligence to now take all those cameras and stitch them together really intelligently. So, I mean, just look how clean this looks. So there you see a little bit of distortion like here, this is a vertical surface. I'm sorry for the
yeah, so this is for like bird's eye view, but on steroids for those at home that can't see the video.
Right. So there you do see an actual bird's eye view, which looks great, right?
Yeah, looks really good.
Right, but they give you a 3D view that you can manipulate and just sort of see all around the car. And this is cool. This is actual, visualization. It's not like a rendering of
like a render. Yeah.
It's interesting. They're using like a wireframe for the car.
Right. So the reason it's a wireframe is that this they're calling it Jelly View. I'm not sure if they're keeping that name, but you have to think when we think jelly in the West, we think like strawberry jam or whatever.
Sure.
But in Asia, jelly is typically referring to a gelatin type candy.
Gummy candies. Yeah, they're delicious.
Yeah, that is transparent. It's a transparent candy. So that's why they're calling it jelly.
That would be a jelly view.
Yeah, it might make you jelly, but the car itself appears to be transparent in that view. So let's see. So the way it works then is, let me see if I have a good video of it here. I think I do. When the car starts moving, the camera remembers what's in front of it. And so it's tracking the position of the wheels and the speed of the vehicle and the angle of the the steering wheel.
Ooh, that
and of
looks
the wheels.
really cool.
That's very cool.
Right. And so then what it's doing is projecting what's in front of the car, and so when it's under the car. And so that's, in Vietnam they have very narrow lanes, and parking is very narrow spots. And so this is pretty helpful. So you can see some distortion when it's like under the car.
Right. Yeah, I can see the cars kind of folding under as you drive by. Yeah.
So for folks that aren't able to see the video, basically what we're seeing is kind of like a ghost wireframe of the car driving on the road, and camera footage of everything under the car and all around the car. So it's almost like a third person view, like in a video game, of a car that you can see through. It's pretty cool. It's actually cool. Live video. It's not rendered. It's live video from essentially what the car's cameras have picked up.
Right. It's live video, but it's definitely processed in a way to make it look right, like to
correct.
Machine
it's
learning to get rid of the aberrations and all that deformity.
Sure.
So like you're seeing like this is a crosswalk. You're seeing the lines of the crosswalk, through the car. You can
see where potholes are, I would imagine, and things like that.
Right. So that's one of the great things is that, you're driving over a pothole, you want to know where it is. And I think at the beginning of this video, so now you see these yellow lines and these green lines. So the yellow lines is the tread of the wheels. Where are the wheels going? And the green is the width of the vehicle. So this is so important.
That's nice.
I don't know if you've ever
really cool.
If you've ever like actually driven around, not driven or even been driven, like I take a cab to wherever I go. They have an Uber type app called Grab that I use to get around. And man, so you have other cars, they don't really drive in the lanes, there are tons of scooters going everywhere. So to be able to see how close something actually is to you, am I about to clip this thing or not?
Right.
It's so important. So this is a very useful tool here. We'd find it useful in the US also, but here it's like a kind of a critically useful tool, I think.
It makes sense that this type of technology is going to come out of a market where it's more necessary than in our market, but we could still benefit from it if you were to bring that over.
I could see this easily being used in some of the parking structures that are really tight, especially, when they're dim and, you've got large cars, small cars, you got people walking around. You're not sure where your mirrors are, much less the side of the car.
For sure.
This is cool.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, I could have benefited from last night. I went out to dinner and I ended up having to raise the suspension to not like clip the thing right in front of my car when I was pulling into the spot. And like, I couldn't see it. I had to get out of the car to even see how, like, what it was. The sensors weren't going off, but nope, needed to raise up so I don't scrape.
Yeah.
This would have given me,
without I've clipped a couple curbs with turning because the sensors don't go off and you're really not sure where that rear wheel is.
Right. So it's pretty cool technology demo.
Right. So, I mean, I think from the very first part is having good cameras or proper cameras in the right positions to actually have a chance of seeing stuff, right?
Sure.
Like that rear view camera isn't just looking behind, it's looking behind and straight down.
Yeah.
Pretty much. So you're seeing, the cat or whatever that's right below your bumper. So that, and the same thing with one right in the front that has such a wide view that it is able to see straight down, as well as in front of you and to the sides. So that, that's the first thing. And that's what, probably everybody should be doing
Right.
And then there's the whole sort of AI level as well to integrate it in a way that looks nice and to then do the projection underneath the car, based on calculations and machine learning. So
Really
yeah,
cool.
anyway, so that's a great bit. And now let me talk about the other bit. So I should say that so VinAI, the way they're set up is there's one part that's research and another part that's products. And so the research part is, doing collaborations with other universities and such, and trying new problems and new things. But there's also part that's developing a product, and so this, this is a product, for example, and and they, will have it available on, future VinFast vehicles. VinFast is its own sort of division, but they'll put it on VinFast vehicles. But they're willing to sell this kind of system to other OEMs as well.
Sure. So we might see it from other car companies as well. Probably not Tesla, if I had to say. Tesla might get some of these same types of benefits or these same types of features, but I can't imagine Tesla licensing this technology from someone versus developing their own in-house.
Tesla would definitely do it themselves. And, honestly, I don't know, you think other people might just copy it. But I don't know. There might be some patents and things too. However that works. I don't know the details.
I could see someone buying it, not wanting to build it. I think there's enough work put into this that it's probably could be worth it to license.
Yeah. But on the first level though, and I'm always like, why isn't Tesla doing this? Yeah, a camera's in the right place first, right?
Yeah.
Because that's a hardware thing, and then you have the software. Okay, so the other thing is this driver monitoring system. So they have a here. I'll just sort of show some images first. This was a demo inside the inside the building where the conference was.
It's only 4 screens.
So all this is what the picture is. It's just a driving game. There's just a driving game with nice multiple screens and a seat, whatever. But what they've added on top of it is their driver monitoring system. So that just made it easier to demo for people and have people have something fun to interact with. And so if you sort of look at the picture here, I'll just zoom in a bit. They just have a camera, and that camera is an infrared camera with an IR illumination. In fact, my camera can pick this up. Like your naked eye would not see these 2 red dots, but the CCD in my camera does. And then there's this visualization, and I'm not sure how much of this would actually be in the car. Right, this is more of a for development, really.
Development and diagnostic type thing. Yeah.
Right. So in the car, I was I was in an engineering car where they were testing this out. They had this screen for the passenger to be, observing this sort of stuff. And so, if you sort of look at,
it kind of shows like the full head, like basically mapping where you're looking, where your head's angles and tilts are.
It tracks the entire head. And again, it's a machine learning type thing. Like it's not doing the iPhone or Xbox Connect thing where you're painted with dots, that sort of 3D imaging. It's really just a machine learning algorithm to place, okay, where is your face? Where are your features? And then, where are your eyes looking? When are your eyes closed? And then it will track all that information. Like how long are your eyes closed? How long are you looking away from the road? And it's sort of programmed to recognize certain behaviors. Like it'll see your phone if you hold your phone up, and the version that we were using in the car, you could select obviously Vietnamese or English, and it would just say, pay attention to the road, and it'll just make an announcement. I mean, these were all adjustable. You could decide what do you want to actually do. Like how incessant do you want to be with the alerts? Like, and the way it was set up when I did the test drive and when I was getting the demo, it would alert you like once and it wouldn't keep doing it. I'm like, well, you know, don't you want to like have them change behavior? Like, yes, but you don't want it to be annoying, right? You don't want to like, you don't
Well,
want
I
it
can
to be
relate
in
to
such a way
that because
Well,
the latest Tesla software updates that do some of this tracking are very annoying.
Oh, come on.
I mean, what I'll say is I think it's good for safety, so I understand why Tesla's doing it, and I think it's definitely an improvement. But now that they're using that internal camera to track you, which we had a previous podcast talking about when that new feature was going to come out. But I noticed, I was on a Zoom call. I was just listening. I wasn't talking. I wasn't looking at the screen or whatever. Just holding up my phone so I could hear the audio because I didn't have it synced through the Bluetooth. The car just started flipping out at me. It was like every 5 seconds, it was like flashing red, like grab the wheel, put pressure on the wheel. You're not paying attention. It's like, come on, guys. I had one hand on the wheel the whole time. I'm looking straight ahead. But it's probably better than the alternative. And as soon as I put the phone down, it stopped completely. It's like, oh yeah, I don't even need to touch the wheel for like a minute. Tesla's starting to do some of this stuff for sure. They could definitely tell I had my phone up.
Right. So that's an important thing to think about is at what level do you want to be annoying? Because at some point people just turn it off, right?
Yep.
If that's any kind of safety system, right? If it's something that forces people to defeat it, then like right now with Tesla, what happens if you put tape over the camera? Will it still let you use autopilot?
Claiming that they're going to stop doing that. So one of the new, I haven't tested it, but apparently in the newest version, again, I could be wrong. Maybe it's an upcoming version. If you tape over the camera, it doesn't let you use FSD. Like it like won't engage. I don't know that that's true because it's also kind of BS because like, wearing sunglasses, right? It can't see my eyes. So I could be like this and like glancing down, and as long as my head's straight, it can't tell.
So what is the camera that Tesla is using right now? Is it just a standard camera, or is it
a standard camera?
Yeah, it's standard. It's the one
right standard camera.
Okay, see, that's a problem. So this camera in this demo, two things, and this is again hardware. Like Tesla needs to have the foresight with the hardware if they're actually going to do this stuff, because once they have to do an update with the hardware, then everything needs to change, right?
Right.
So the IR, sunglasses are transparent to IR, so sunglasses aren't a problem for the eye tracking, and the camera that they use also has infrared illumination. So at night, there's no problem. Day or night, doesn't matter.
Right.
You can see all the features of the driver. So that I think the positioning of the Tesla camera is good. Because I was discussing with these guys, okay, where can you put the camera? And so in this example, they just put it on the side, and this position is for a bus driver. So this system is actually going into
public transit,
public transportation in Vietnam.
I'm actually surprised. I'm surprised it works as well as it does, tucked in the corner like that. I would have expected me a little more head on.
Right. Well, so that used to be the case when they did eye tracking, and that was done with calculations, and they would use infrared illumination and use the red eye effect to actually see where the pupils were, and that needed very careful calibration. Where this, again, when I'm looking at a person, I can pretty much tell where they're looking, no matter if I'm to the side of them or right in front of them, right?
Right.
And so you can train a machine learning model to be able to determine where someone is looking. So they have this position in the side, and that's for the bus. They in the demo, the image I showed, that was like in the lobby of the conference center, that was more centered, and they had a position that's pretty much like right above the binnacle, but I was explaining to them, that's a terrible position for me, because at my height it gets blocked by the steering wheel, right? Like most cars I'm in, I can't actually see the speedometer, because for me to have a comfortable
the wheel goes right there.
The wheel,
yeah,
right.
Little yoke fixes that right up.
Yeah, exactly. Right. And the other position is pretty much where the Tesla camera is. But again, the Tesla camera isn't up to this task. You need an infrared camera, and you need some infrared illumination for for nighttime, or just in general. If you just have a constant infrared illumination, then
I'm looking forward to our dystopian future where people end up wearing glasses that have like painted on eyes, and so that you can trick the system and take a nap, or some other nonsense we're going to do to circumvent the systems.
So I don't know that would fool the system or not. I don't think that would fool the system. Well, obviously you could do something to software wise, you could obviously predict that, right?
Sure,
this person,
you can plug in software, but
like this thing is looking at every time you blink, like this right here. If you
oh wow, yeah, it's like a graph of your blinks.
Exactly. So every time it's not at 100%, this is because the person blinked, right? Or maybe they looked away or something. But so we know that humans won't keep their eyes open for like 3 minutes straight, right? So if it sees that, it might say, "Oh, there's a problem. Somebody's trying to defeat the system." And then also, your eyes don't stay fixed in one position.
Right.
They move. If it's on your glasses, it's probably in the wrong position.
Contacts, something. I don't know, but you're right. It'll be easier with software to fake it out.
Yeah. So, anything you can do to try to defeat it. I mean, they can try to come back, but in the end, these things need to be user-friendly systems. I'll say like this system wasn't really complete. Like some limitations were when I'm turning, like when I turn, I'm looking to the left, right? I'm looking where I'm going.
Your head over the shoulder, look either way.
Exactly. So, but when I turn my head, it would say, pay attention to the road or whatever. So it didn't know that, oh, I'm not looking at the road still. So this is easily fixable. They could use that steering input to say, okay, that he's going to be looking to the left when he has that steering input. So again, these are just sort of software things that could be done. I think hardware-wise, they have everything they needed there, and a lot of thoughts here. Very, very clever stuff. Convenient things too. Like when I got in the car, I haven't driven the car before. It identified me as a stranger, as someone. So it takes an image of the face, so it knows who the driver is. So your driver profile thing is a lot easier because it's just recognizing who the driver is by their face.
Sure.
And it can automatically adjust the side view mirrors based on how I'm sitting and where my head is, because it has a camera and knows where my eyes are and when my eyes are looking. That's cool. It did a great job. I'm like, yeah, this is good.
Yeah. I gotta wonder what the personal privacy folks would have to say about that.
Right. So, it's a different culture. And, they had a presentation that was, that was part of the conference, showing the kind of things they want to do. All I really saw with this system was basically eye tracking and hands, and also detecting if you're sleepy. Let me just talk about this for a minute. Like me personally, I have fallen asleep while driving, and pretty much everyone has.
Oh man,
had a little,
nod off a little bit. Yeah.
And
I have done it, but it's been many years.
But pretty much everybody's done it, right?
Yeah,
pretty much.
20%. This is some statistic I saw recently. It was part of the presentation, but someone could check it maybe. Supposedly 20% of accidents are from people falling asleep.
That high?
Yeah, that's wow. Huge. It's probably worse than drunk driving. Interesting. And like my dad worked the graveyard shift, and he's had issues for at least as long as I remember. Like every car is always like, why is that dinged up? Oh, something happened. What?
Yes, something happened. Yeah.
Right.
So just throwing out some stats. So National Safety Council claims, or from AAA, it's about 9.5%, at least in the U.S., is from drowsy driving. That's much higher than I would expect. 9.5% of crashes.
People tend to be chronically sleep deprived. People seem to think they can run on less sleep than they get, for whatever reason. And coffee fixes everything.
In my case, I was in LA for the Model S launch back in 2009, and I drove from the San Francisco Bay Area all the way to LA in my little Miata.
Ooh, and that's a hard drive.
Well, it was a great drive, actually. I loved it. But but when I was in LA, it was nonstop for the whole weekend. I was there in the middle of the day. They had a whole press thing, and then had this party in the evening with Arnold Schwarzenegger, and everybody was there. And it was just really neat stuff, and it went really late. And then I was just busy that whole weekend, seeing different people. And so I barely slept for like a couple of days. And then I needed to drive back north. And it was in the afternoon, broad daylight, about 3 p.m. or so. And I was just north of LA. And man, was I tired. I mean, like before I left, I stopped to get like a caffeinated soda or something. Yeah, I don't drink coffee. I had a caffeinated soda, and man, that did not help.
Yeah. One of our viewers actually commented, Danny Tutton. I don't know. Hopefully I said that right. Tutton.
Yeah.
He said, I slept driving from Jacksonville to Atlanta 6 hours. I mean, it's amazing what the subconscious can do. I once fell asleep driving from Pennsylvania to New Jersey. It was about an hour, and I fell asleep on the parkway and woke up in my driveway, and I have no idea how I got there.
So that's different. That's different. That's at least part of your brain is doing something, right? It's just that you have no memory of it. You did it, but you just don't have memory of it. That I've done all the time, right? You're on your own.
I mean, that was like subconscious level, though, right? Like I have had ones. I had one instance again many years ago. I used to be an insomniac when I was a teenager, and I fell asleep on the highway and woke up to almost running into somebody in front of me.
Yeah.
Where all of a sudden I got alerted. I guess I don't know what it was. Subconscious something was like, wake up, and I almost crashed into a car in front of me. But thankfully I've never had an accident from anything like that, and I now sleep much better.
Yeah. So Jones one had a comment about being watched by cameras and how he's gotten used to it. And, he says, I used to feel uncomfortable. Now I have cameras in my house. I think there's a lot of people in that boat that the more we've been around tech like this, you're being watched in your car, you're being watched at work, you got cameras set around the house, you got the nanny cam watching the kids, you just kind of start tuning that out as part of the normal day-to-day activity. But still, it makes me wonder what's going to happen to all that data
and what we do with it. Actually, part of this conference, there's a whole section on, safety with AI and data privacy. And, there's a talk from Intel about, how the data is encrypted and how you can do things about the personalization of the data and privatization of the data, particularly in medical.
Think of the deep fake you could do with that kind of data.
Right.
I'm being serious. I mean, you're getting a complete picture of someone, mannerisms, how they look, how they watch the car. I mean, you put your little tinfoil hat on, this could go wrong really fast.
Sure. Well, just to finish up on the sleep part, my issue was I'm driving north and I'm tired, and I know I'm tired, and I'm like, man, I need to pull over.
Yeah.
And we just passed an exit, and it's like, okay, I got to get the next exit. and I'm sweating bullets. I'm kind of like, oh man, this is scary, right? And I can't pull over safely until I get to that exit. And so I'm trying to get to the exit, and then I woke up. and what had happened was the road had curved, and I had a microsleep or something. And so the car, there was like a big SUV, like a Ford Explorer or something to my left, and the road curved, and I kept going straight, and I ended up hitting that SUV, which saved my life. I mean, I think, right? Otherwise, I would have hit the barrier at 70 miles an hour. Instead, I hit a SUV at like, you know, a relative speed of like 5 miles an hour or something. But that bump woke me up, and we pulled over, and the guy was
very unhappy with you.
No, he was great. He was.
Oh wow.
Yeah,
you probably woke him up too.
Maybe, but I mean, you know, the dude literally saved my life, I think. So, you know, so I mean, it was anyway. Anyway, this happens. So with this system right now, it sees you yawning, it sees the eyes closing, it sees the dipping of the head, and it will say, you know, take a break. Actually, what is it?
Take a break.
Take a break. The thing is, though, that system would not have helped me in my situation because I knew, right? But I couldn't just immediately take a break. I had to get somewhere, and I was screwed. Though, you know, with you know, like the way autopilot is and current like you know, advanced driver assisted systems keeping you in lane, I would have been, you know, I would have been tired, but I would have been fine unless, you know, something unexpected happened. You know, I think I'm safer with autopilot.
Yep.
I mean, you don't want to drive drowsy with autopilot, and I do think Tesla should be, and they should be doing driver monitoring and letting you know if you're tired. It should let you know if you're tired and you're not paying attention. But man, am I safer if I do, like, you know, nod off a little bit or something, you know?
Right. For sure.
I'd rather be held in lane than veering off the lane or crashing into somebody.
So Danny was saying that about having a slight mental fog when he was driving, and I have to agree. I drive to San Diego a lot, which is about 80 miles each way, and I tend to come home late. And that, you know, Danny, that mental fog you're talking about, I absolutely agree. You're not asleep. You're not really tired per se, but you just don't have the acuity you really should have at night. And, you know, the autopilot and the lane safety, that's a blessing. It kind of eases the load a little bit as you go along. A little safety.
Yeah,
net.
there's debate on either side of that. I think you're safer, definitely. I think you're definitely safer. The question
I don't mind a Danny a little bit, you know.
Well, the question is when you have a level 3 or level 2 plus system like that, is there's studies of like, okay, when there's something that happens, like when you have to intervene, how long does it take for your brain to get into a mode of I need to do something and to properly do it? And some studies say as much as 9 seconds to like be okay, I need to do something. So I don't know, but for me, it's when I'm using autopilot, it's just a different driving task. At that point, I'm it's kind of like like what, you know, train operators are like. Often they just monitor the speed, you know, they have like a big wheel that just monitors the speed, like the TGV train operator.
Yeah. Make sure not too big of a mistake is made.
Right. And so for me, that's I have a routine of like forward mirror, you know, rear view mirror, the forward, left view mirror, forward, you know, and speed and seeing what the car is doing and all that. And I'm just going through that. And my hands might not be on the wheel, but they're ready. My feet aren't on the pedals, but they're ready.
Sure.
And it's just a different task. And like I see, you know, I'm approaching a merged lane or whatever. I click the change lanes, whatever. But it's a very different task. But I'm ready to take over. I think instantly because I've done it. You know,
right?
But it's a different task, but it's also less taxing of a task. So when I get to where I'm going, I feel great.
So I just have to jump in here because I'm really excited about our next topic. So
you would be.
Yeah. So Project Dojo, my friends, the Tesla nerd in me is excited. The semiconductor nerd in me is excited.
I was going to say it's a semiconductor nerd. You all excited about those chips, yeah.
So I have to say,
teraflops and everything.
So I first up front, I'm going to hopefully not bore you all to death, but I'll try to keep it. I'm so sorry for the noise. I'm getting paged by work. Anyway, they'll live. So basically, there was a recent conference called Hot Chips 34. It's a high performance computer chip conference, whatever. Super mega nerds go there and are interested in stuff. But Tesla finally provided their first real look into the hardware and software architecture of the Project Dojo system. For those that don't know, that's the tens or hundreds of millions of dollars of investment that Tesla made into how they can accelerate their machine learning, their AI stuff for their self-driving and all the other types of cool bells and whistles that they're working on. And they released a bunch of specs and stats, and you can get into the teraflops and all the other kind of, cool things. I won't dive too much into that because, outside, unless you're like a super nerd like me, you probably don't care. But what I do want to just kind of cover a little bit on the high level of the innovation that Tesla has made. And, really when I looked at it, when I looked at what their platform, what they're doing with the new chips, what's really impressive is that they're really kind of doing a combination of focusing on scalability, on flexibility, and on efficiency of how they do machine learning. And, I'll very quickly, basics about the machine learning and the models. You probably all hear about models. When you have a model, it's a little bit different than how you think about things as a person. So when you're a person and say you're playing baseball or you're driving or doing whatever, when you do that thing, you're also learning from it, right? When you're playing baseball or playing a sport, you're also getting better at that sport as you're playing. You're developing the skill while you're doing that. That's not how the vast majority of machine learning works. Normally in a computer with an AI, you either are in training mode or you're in inference mode. And training mode is where I'm taking lots of data and I'm teaching the model. And then inference mode is when I have a trained model already and I'm using it to make predictions and figure some stuff out. So in your car, your models, your AI, your self-driving, that's not in training mode. That's in inference mode. And the training actually happens back in the Tesla offices and the data centers where they have all their data scientists doing a bunch of work. And so this architecture, this thing they mostly showed us is mostly around the training. It's how can they, train the models? How can they take all this massive data they're getting from their fleet of cars and learn from it and teach their AI models how to drive the car, safely. And so, again, it was just really impressive to see what they've done. They have this whole architecture around, they have a custom instruction set. Again, not that important, but just they didn't want to tie themselves to any existing technologies out there. They wanted to focus on how could I take one chip and how could I take 100 chips and how could I take 1,000 chips and make them all work together into this supercomputer type environment, so they can scale it out, which is really, really useful, and especially as they develop more advanced technologies. The other cool thing is, their flexibility. So I mentioned that whole thing earlier, flops, so floating point operations, whatever, not that important, but, so to relate this to one of their cool things they did with their flexibility is their chip can actually work on different types of floating point math. It can do different precision. So what I mean is when you're in school and you first learn about pi, everyone hopefully knows pi 3.14 or whatever, 3.14, that works for some things, but that's not really that accurate for a lot of more advanced things. So some of us might, for example, I usually would use 3.14159, for example. I need more digits to be more useful. Well, what's interesting about machine learning and AI is that you don't actually need that many digits. You don't actually need that much precision in a lot of calculations. So when you hear about your computers and all your precision, and you got your 64 bits and your 32 bits, back in the day on Ataris, right? We had 8 bits. That's how much precision you can have. Tesla's chip has the ability to dynamically scale, so it's more efficient in the power and what they need of all the precision. So anyway, architecture is awesome. It's going to allow their machine learning guys to run lots of experiments, and that is huge. Quickly to get feedback. When I train a model, my own data scientist I work with today at my company, if they try to train a model on their laptop, it might take several weeks. If you train it on this, in the cloud, it might take, a few hours on these, servers. With this Dojo architecture, they'll be able to do thousands of models and get in seconds have feedback and on their experiments. Their machine learning guys will be able to iterate quickly. They focused a lot on, data transfer and interconnects and all the other kind of stuff, how to be efficient with memory. Anyway, it's really exciting stuff. So if you are interested in that information, there's a thread on the Tesla Motors Club forums where we showed it earlier, that the links to some of that information, or just Google it. But it was really cool. Really great to see the new architecture. Tesla has spared no expense. They brought in a ton of brilliant engineers, some of the greatest minds in semiconductor. They stole a bunch of people out of AMD. They got some folks from Apple. Former Intel guys. They got all these folks together, and they designed a new chip architecture from the ground up. And now they're finally getting it to be delivered. It's being manufactured by TSMC, which 7 nanometer. So again, not the latest and greatest absolute technology, but very close to it, pretty bleeding edge. TSMC actually does 3 and 4 nanometer now, but the cost, it doesn't make sense. So Tesla made the right choice. They're 7 nanometer. And anyway, again, there's no individual. This is the interesting thing, I think, for me. There was no individual innovation or thing that was like innovative. What was innovative is all the things they brought together. So like the math precision stuff, like Google did that with their TPU chips, 6 years ago, 7 years ago. That was probably the first time I ever saw that. But like just combining that with some of the scaling, the hyper, scaled architecture and the interconnects and the data transfer, that's what's really impressive. So anyway, there's a question in the chat. When will Dojo become self-aware? Hopefully soon. Please, AI overlords, save me from this world. I don't think it'll ever become self-aware, but it certainly will allow our FSD to be much better.
I'll quote you on that.
Yeah, I think it's a huge advantage for Tesla to be able to deliver to self-driving. They're going to make a lot of great strides. It'll allow them to iterate much faster, which will be really awesome. And what's crazy is the chip could someday even see its way into the car. I don't think they're going to do that soon. I don't think it benefits in the car right now. But like, for example, the latest Pixel phones from Google have their Tensor chips in them, which is their version of this custom AI chip. They have their own. So there is, and it took about 5 years-ish from when they first developed the chip to make it into phones. It's possible it could make it into our cars in the future, which would be cool. But anyway, it's really awesome. And sorry, I get really excited about this stuff.
Let me ask. So Dojo though is about the training, right? Is there some
Correct,
of that
primarily
Dojo
the training, yes,
that will end up being, in the real-time inference of the driving?
It could, though. It could do the inference as well. But yes, it's custom tailored to the training for sure, is where it's really focused. But I mean, inference is kind of like training, but at a much simpler scale, much smaller scale. So you don't need as much horsepower to do inference, but you can still benefit from the same types of calculations in some ways.
Something that came up in this AI conference was, particularly in terms of autonomous driving, is simulated training versus real world training. And so yeah, I mean, what do you think about that? I mean, like the Dojo is like, what is Tesla saying in terms of the percentage of real world versus? I mean, in theory they have a ton of real world, right?
I think Tesla mostly works with real world. What is interesting is like other companies like Waymo, out of Google, is mostly uses simulation. And I think
talk about millions of hours or
right. Realistically, I would say, in my opinion, simulation is probably the way I would have gone. If I was designing this and doing my own thing, I would probably have gone much closer to how Google approached solving the problem. But I think that approach is much faster and easier to get to doing robo-taxis in geofenced areas. Like, oh yeah, we could do robo-taxis in this city or in this area. I think Tesla's approach is fundamentally different and is going to get you into a general, like wider spread, just like it works in more, situations and more broader areas, probably better. But I mean, who's going to win in the end? I mean, who knows? Nobody's actually level 5 yet. So I couldn't say which way we'll get there. But so again, I would have done more simulation, but I do feel like Tesla, they have the data, right? If you have the real world data, use it. And I think that they definitely play more with real world. That doesn't mean they couldn't use Dojo to run against simulated data. It's just they would have to. What I will say is Dojo, even though it is like a supercomputer, it has all these powerful things. and it was at the high performance computing, it doesn't actually have some of the design decisions that enable it to do good simulation. So like you wouldn't want to use Dojo to play Crisis. You wouldn't want to use Dojo to like render, stuff for like aerospace and stuff like that. It's actually not going to be what it's good at. What's that?
Well, it's an ASIC, right? I mean, it's got a particular job it's supposed to do. Right?
It's really good at the job that Tesla's setting forward for it. So where I'm most excited is I'm curious to see Dojo version 2 and Dojo version 3, because again, Google, same thing. They had the Tensor chip. That the TPUs were really cool. Version 1 was cool and innovative, but then version 2 is where it started to get really sexy, and version 3 where they get to refine it. And I'm sure that Tesla's going to continue to do that. So
Louis, I think you just answered the question for me.
Okay.
And the question was, how does Tesla justify raising the price of FSD again this year?
Yeah.
I mean, come on, 15K, seriously?
So for those that haven't heard, we also have a new version of FSD software has finally been released.
Yeah.
So 10.69. Thanks Elon for our troll version numbers. I'm surprised it wasn't 69.420, but we're close. That'll be the next one. No, they did say the next one would be 69.1, so they're not going completely.
I'll believe that
off
when
the
I see
rails.
it.
So they finally released it. It was delayed. It went out to about 1,000 users. And they're claiming, I think, tomorrow, actually, they're going to finally release 10.69.1, which should go out to originally said 10,000 users. We'll see how that ends up.
We'll see.
This is that integrated full stack FSD where the highway driving is using the newer models from the city driving. Yeah. So far, it seems promising. A lot of people seem to like it. But the bad news associated with it, or it's good news, depending on where you are on the spectrum of already owning your car and your FSD, is Elon said we're raising the prices again. So come September, 15K for FSD on your car. So that subscription is really looking good.
Yeah. So I pay $199. I still pay $199 for my subscription.
Yeah.
And I haven't seen or heard any rumor about that bumping up, which would really suck if they do it.
I mean, I'm really curious to see if they're going to, they've got, here's the thing. Okay, $15,000, right? You divide that into $200 a month, right? You're talking over 6 years, right?
Yeah.
6.25 years-ish. My math is good. Hopefully it is. That's... Why would you buy it? Why would you pay $15,000?
I think we are being not so gently pushed into the subscription model.
Well, but that $200 again, as people we kept joking pretty much this whole weekend. I got FSD on sale for $2,000
on sale.
Yeah, it was with I had already paid I think $7,000 for enhanced autopilot. And then there was a $4,000 extra for FSD, which I didn't do at the beginning. But then there was a sale, and I paid $2,000. So I got to save $2,000 on nothing. Right?
So you got the full money of nothing.
Of nothing, right? So
that
$200 a month that you're paying. I mean, you're not getting FSD. You're just getting access to navigate on autopilit, right? I mean, is that
pretty much?
Basically, and you don't even need to do that, right? You could do the cheaper price for the enhanced autopilot, which is, half the price, and that'll give you navigate on autopilot as well now. The only thing FSD gives you is access to the beta if you're in the beta. And if you're not in the beta, guess what? Yeah. They're not letting us in the beta right now. So
I've got 2 weeks of 100, and I'm kind of sitting here cooling my heels, waiting to see if I can get in.
I'm hoping they let us in soon. As what's it called? One of our viewers mentioned, Michael Mooney said, that the monthly price, Elon tweeted, the monthly price, the subscription will go up once the wide release. So basically once beta is not beta anymore, and as long as you pay for it, you get it. Which, you know what? I look forward to this day. There are so many people on the forums and on Reddit and all social media that basically are like, FSD is a bunch of nonsense. You're paying and you're not getting anything, or, you have to be let in. What are you getting? And it's like, I agree with the sentiment. However, you don't have FSD yet. You're not paying for FSD. You're paying for the ability to have FSD when it is released, which it is not released yet, right?
Which is still crazy, right? But
which is crazy.
It
is crazy. But like once it goes wide, that argument goes away, and you know what you're getting when you pay for it, which I do look forward to. Then it stops being as crazy. Now maybe the price isn't worth it. That I won't debate on. That's a personal decision. I'm one of those crazy people. I spent $12,000 on FSD on my car, and I still have not gotten to use it yet because I'm not in the beta. So,
well, I guess we'll see. We'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see what it is. I mean, that wide release, FSD Beta is still not going to be labeled a level 4 system, right? It's still
God no. It's not even going to be level 3.
Not even
really.
Close.
Or level 2 plus.
I don't think it'll be level 3 even. I mean, we'll see when Tesla eventually gets to claiming level 3. But personally, I don't see it being level 3. I think it's going to continue to be the level 2 plus for a while. For a few years.
So I wonder if the issue of liability might play into that, because if they claim it's level 3, then liability goes up a lot.
Well, I think level 3
still you
on the driver.
Well, it's still you, but
yeah,
again, lawyers have a good time with that sort
level
of thing.
Level 4, yeah.
They will probably never. I won't say never. They won't do for a very long time, because then it's suddenly Tesla's fault when something goes wrong. So you'll probably have level 4 before you actually call it level 4.
Right. Maybe. The sentiment here in, especially at this conference, and these are, experts from all over the world, is, that full level of autonomy they see it as years away. No one really wants to put a real date on it, but years away. And, they say, well, in some ways we have it with Waymo because that is driverless, but it's in Phoenix. But
that's a pretty limited footprint.
Very well known.
Yeah.
And it's a very geofence type of situation, controlled situation.
Well, they have it up in the Bay Area too with the GM Cruises, but they've had issues where when the system crashes and burns, the whole thing shuts down. I mean,
right? Yeah, I mean,
I think we got some teething problems there to deal with.
Yeah, there's a famous bet with it was just on a recent podcast with John Carmack where he has a bet that he thinks they'll have fully autonomous driving in the next 10 years, right? So I agree with that. I think it's that close in the sense of it's not more than like a decade
in general
away.
Use or in very specific use cases.
No, like being available as a technology, like that robo taxis will exist in major cities and stuff. That's everybody's personal car will be able to do it, or that like Tesla owners will be able to do it. His is just a general. There will be robo taxis similar to the whole Phoenix thing, but like broadly across major cities and areas.
Something that came up at some dinners was like the business case of robo taxis, and when does it actually become a profitable business, like a good business proposition? Because like Waymo right now, I'm sure they're losing money on that, partially because like they have staff that have to like come get the cars when they have problems. Like they have like vans that come up, and maintenance and all that other stuff. So it just isn't, even in that controlled environment of Phoenix, that's not really working. Now I think Tesla has a great model, which is our customers buy the cars, right? and so however long it takes, they'll just keep selling them, and maybe at some point it might be profitable for them to just own the cars, but until then, they have their intermediate model of, well, we have people that are just going to buy them and pay for the software that doesn't yet exist.
Right. Yeah, I mean, they're definitely, Tesla is much smarter in how to profit off of it and how to be financially solvent in accomplishing it. Waymo is definitely burning money, but at the same time, if you look at like interventions required per miles driven, Waymo is currently the leader, right? Like they're measuring, from last time I saw, it's something like 30 to 40,000 miles between needing a driver intervention.
Yeah, but of course,
Tesla averages 2.
Right.
2 miles, not 2,000, 2 miles. But again, the difference is Tesla has way more people doing it in a much broader category. And I love my autopilot, and I look forward to FSD Beta. And I think Tesla is going to have a better solution for a broader, general purpose solution.
And overall, I like the Tesla approach because I think the Tesla approach actually is pushing the envelope and pushing us forward in terms of technology, and we can see it. We see it getting better.
Yep.
People
and they make cool things
whether,
like Dojo.
Yeah, exactly. Right. But people can debate if it's, their ethics debates, if we're all guinea pigs or whatever. But I think it's pushing technology forward, and I like to see progress. So I like Tesla.
Yeah.
So Michael Money's got a comment about, before robotaxis are out, wouldn't they need to improve parking lot driving so robotaxis can make it to chargers? Amen, brother. My car is supposed to auto park, and can it park into the charger at the supercharger? No.
Tesla's parking is pretty bad.
It's terrible.
Other cars have had auto parking that works much better than Tesla years ago.
The fact that you have to back your Tesla in 95% of the time, I think that's a perfect use case for auto parking for a lot of people.
I think they haven't worked on it, right? Like, it's one of those things where you can notice, like, Tesla's ML team was focused on city street driving, and then they were focused on expanding it out to highway driving again.
Yeah, the parking lot was
somebody
like a
needs to go
third.
Someone needs to be like, hey, Elon, put a couple nerds on self parking, right? Like,
well, and the big difference is another OEM would have a package, like, here's the package that does auto park, and that's it, right?
Yep.
Just like other OEMs will have rain sensor detection, right? Because that's just a package. Here's the thing. And Tesla's like, well, we have a camera.
My 2015 i3 has that package. It's a backup camera, and it's got some sensors, and it's got a little voice that'll chirp at you and let you know when you're centered on the target. It was an additional package you could buy.
Right. So the Tesla approach is, well, we have this system, and that's just, that'll just be part of our machine learning system. We'll figure that out. Just like we'll figure out when the windshield wipers will work. Well, when I first got my car, that hardly worked right at all. Right. The wipers would be going, it's dry outside, it starts raining, and it's not working. Now with the software update, it looks great. But again, like, another OEM would have a package with that, and it would just work. But then again, it will be redundant in the future if Tesla is able to train their AI to deal with it.
Yeah. Amin commented, his 2016 Model S equipped with Mobileye hardware auto parked perfectly, right? But his new Model Y 2021
not so much.
And again, back then when it was Mobileye hardware, it was more of that kind of module that you're just buying.
It was a complete package that already knew how to do that stuff.
Yeah.
So it is different. But once Tesla does actually work on it and does get to perfect it, it should be able to allow them to have a broader feature set for less cost, which they will not pass on to the customer. They'll just increase their margins. But that's just...
I've got to ask you, Louis, I saw something this last week that kind of cooled my ardor for a plaid lust.
Oh, man.
Where there's a cool little toy coming out called a Lucid Air Sapphire.
Oh my!
Now I gotta admit, it's very sexy looking, but the price tag's a little off-putting.
Yeah, I mean, I find it interesting. So the Lucid Air Sapphire is a new limited release model.
Very limited release.
Not a full production. It's a limited release model. That is essentially Lucid's answer to the Plaid. I don't know about that. We'll have to see. So let's put it this way. Lucid already has a car, the Air Dream Edition, or whatever, has more horsepower than a Plaid. It does not beat a Plaid. Because it's also heavier. The motors aren't as efficient. They don't have the carbon fiber wrapped, stators and all those other types of cool technology innovations that Tesla does. So this one though is like a whole extra. I think it's 4 motors or something. It's like a whole extra.
They're saying 1,200 horsepower.
Yeah, so they're saying 1,200 horsepower. So 1,200 horsepower car should beat a Plaid if a Plaid's only at 10, 20.
0 to 60 under 2 seconds.
They say yeah, exactly. So
that's pretty
really,
spiffy.
What's going to be interesting to see is when they make it, how it actually works. And then there's also the whole notion of, Lucid makes great cars for what a Lucid is, and they're definitely more luxury, right? So I would hands down say buying a Lucid is more like buying a Mercedes, S-Class than it is like buying a Tesla. Whereas, they're going to have the massage seats, they're going to have, all those other, luxury type materials and things that Teslas don't put into their cars. I was at a car show today and tons of people were like, ooh, the Plaid, it's so sexy. And it's like, yeah, but like, it doesn't look like that other, that fancy car over there that doesn't cost as much. Right. Yeah. The Audi e-tron that costs, $50,000 less than the Plaid has massage seats. My Plaid doesn't have massage seats, but the thing that the Tesla still has that I love is that clean, elegant design. When I look inside these other cars, the Audis and the Lucids and stuff, they look so ugly to me with all really of busy. All the vents and all the things. And, William G, I believe his name is, on the Tesla Motors Club forums, William G did a fantastic post about his, he has a Plaid owner, his comparison of the Lucid Grand Touring. And, so it's not the Sapphire, but it's basically this roughly the same. It just doesn't have as much horsepower. And there were pros and cons, things that he liked. I didn't necessarily agree with all of his things, but also some of us, we have different needs, right? So William commented, he's 6'5", so he liked the Lucid because it felt, like he didn't feel cramped as a big guy. I am not a big guy. I'm a short Southern Italian 5'7", so I don't feel cramped in my Plaid at all, even in the back seat. The yoke, I actually love the yoke. I don't care about it being a wheel at all. There's literally nothing about the yoke that I don't like. The thing I don't like is the lack of stalks for the turn signals. That to me is the big flaw in the yoke design. It doesn't matter if it's a wheel or a yoke. If they don't have stalks, it has the same problem. It's the turn signals or somewhere else when I want a signal.
Just take your hand and just flick it.
Right. So to me, the yoke is great. I don't mind that. He commented, I think something like it was easier to see the display, yada yada, as a tall person. This, that, and the other thing. As a short person, I love the yoke because I can see the display.
You'll get that.
So anyway,
upper.
Again, he commented there were fit and finish issues. There were things that were nicer about the Lucid, things that weren't as nice about the Lucid. And he still, it looked, from my interpretation was he wasn't really in Camp Lucid yet. He was kind of like, he's still leaning towards liking the Plaid more. The other big difference, the Lucid Air Sapphire MSRP is $250,000. Yes. $250,000, friends. Yes. The MSRP of a Plaid is $130,000. So you're talking almost half the price.
LOL.
So, I mean, yeah, LOL. I agree.
That was Siri giving her opinion on it.
Yeah, Siri gave her opinion. Excellent. So, So, I mean, we'll see.
Are they going to be able to execute is the real question, I would say. I mean,
and just because it has 1,200 horsepower doesn't mean it's going to win in a race. But also, will the cars deliver? It's a limited production car. It is not a normal, full production vehicle. So we'll see what happens. I wish them luck. I am happy that cars like Lucid and others are coming out because it's going to kind of hopefully force Tesla to up their game in certain areas.
Yeah, I was going to say,
they'll have to figure out how to improve their technology. Competition is great. I love free market competition. So,
and I mean, you and I were talking a little earlier about the competition between Tesla and Audi, with the e-tron, the fact that even though the Audi's got a bigger battery pack, they've got less range because they're not as efficient. And I remember an interview, the CEO of Lucid making a big deal about efficiency. And in his mind, that was the absolute key for success with an EV is how efficient can you build your car?
And we've had conversations too around battery sizes, right? Where Lucid puts a lot of emphasis on like the range, like, oh, we've got 500-mile range, 600-mile range.
They do.
I feel like that's a waste of battery resources, right? We have limited battery production. We have limited resources for getting batteries. I don't need a 600-mile range car. Like, does it hurt having one? It doesn't hurt as in like, outside of my wallet. Like it's
until
like,
you go to
okay.
charge it and you're there
But
for an hour.
But I mean, technically,
again,
I'd rather
it's
have
marketing.
2 cars, made than 1 car, 2 300-mile cars than 1 600-mile range car, right? Because who needs a 600-mile range?
The consumer understands range, and they maybe have an idea about efficiency. So I think it's really a marketing thing. People aren't going to turn down having more range and who has the most range. And that's where Lucid is. I really want them to be successful. A lot of early Tesla people are at Lucid. That CEO that you were talking about, his name escapes me now, but he used to be head of manufacturing at Tesla, and he left just before the Model S launched. But Tesla has a history of significant executives disappearing just before something important's about to happen. So I don't know whatever that means. But I'd like them to be successful, and Tesla really does need competition. They really do, because it'll just make all our lives better if Tesla starts taking care of our pain points.
Agreed.
That as consumers, that they basically push to the side as they deal with their own priorities.
Peter Rawlinson is his name, by the way.
Yeah, Rawlinson. He has a really great British accent.
Yeah, he's also a really tall guy.
Yeah.
No, I actually don't know that. I'm kidding.
Maybe that's why there's
the Rivian CEO is really tall. One of them is super tall. I saw a video and I was like, man, that guy's tall. I think that was the Rivian CEO. Anyway.
Well, I would add a comment, Doug, about range. I'm not convinced the consumer, as a rule, really has a good clue about range and what range means on EV. I mean, all right, so I got 500 miles of range, but I only drive 25 miles to 30 miles a day, picking the kids up at school and taking them around. I mean, what's the point of the 500
I might have to go somewhere.
Oh, you might. You might
have to drive
once a year. Once a year, I need that 500 miles.
Yeah.
I mean, and that's why you just need a good charging network, and it doesn't matter.
And the point, I read a really good article about this, and the point the author was making is range on EV is not the same as range in a gas car. You go home at the end of the day, you plug it in, the next day you got a full tank or range or whatever you want to call it the next day without having to do anything. And I'm not sure people appreciate that till they get the EV and they go through the motion in a couple of weeks and they realize, oh yeah, I don't have to go to the gas station once a week. I don't have to watch that gauge. I just plug in and go.
Yeah, I've had over 1,200 miles on my Plaid so far, and I have never charged it outside of my garage. It is only ever charged in my garage, because as long as I don't go more than 250, 300 miles in a day, which I don't.
Yeah, well, or you're not tracking the car.
It's going to be full every time I need it. Right.
And all my home charging has always been on 120 volts. That's all I've ever really needed for my normal, getting around. But when I need to do a trip, I have a.
Well, I run 3 EVs here, so I've actually got level 2 because I need the speed. I've got 3 people lined up every day who need batteries, charged up. So it works out pretty well for me.
See, Hugo has a question. Hi guys, I have FSD and waiting on this update. Also have a 98 score. When should I be getting the update? I own the 2020 Model Y Performance.
Take a number, buddy.
I have some good news and I have some bad news, Hugo. The good news is your score is high enough to get into beta when they let more people in. The bad news is we have no idea when they're going to let more people in, myself included. I also have a 98. I am not in. They let a few people in a few months ago. It was about a little over 2 months ago. They let in a bunch of people. And Elon claims this year it'll go wide. So hopefully by the end of the year, everyone will get in. But I'm hoping in the next few weeks, they will let in another batch based on the new rollout of the 1069.2 version. But yeah, we don't actually know. So I wish you luck.
Well, actually, Lewis and I are hoping that we keep whining enough on this podcast that Elon will take pity on us.
If Elon watched this podcast, he would probably blacklist me from getting into the beta. But I'm hoping that somebody, somebody's nice who lets me in. Adam says, interesting points the author who also wrote the ludicrous book on Tesla makes on how to best use limited battery supply.
Yep.
So there's definitely books and information out there on how to efficiently use an EV.
that author is Ed Niedermeyer, who is pretty persona non grata as far as Elon is concerned.
Yeah.
Yeah. I
He used
guess,
to
Lewis,
be
you're going to have
on,
to take a number.
Yeah.
he used to
No,
be
and I
actually still is a very big Tesla critic, but I do agree with that sentiment. He spoke
Yeah.
he was part of a panel at one of our events some years ago. But yeah, he's a pretty big Tesla critic, and he's not always fair. I mean, he has a lot of fair criticisms, but he's not always fair. So he's got
most of us aren't.
I was going to say,
Yeah.
when you take a journalism class, the first thing you learn is everybody's got a slant when you write.
Yeah.
So
Michael Mooney writes, Nishta was in the same boat. They had to write to Tesla to try to be let into the beta because basically they're like, hey, we have your car. We're supposed to test this for safety and we can't get access to the software. So yeah, maybe I should write a letter and pretend that I'm Nishta. No, they would probably not let me in that way either.
Yeah, I've been waiting too.
So hopefully soon. Next few weeks, maybe we'll all get in. Luckily,
I'm not holding my breath
if we're lucky. Yeah, but I won't either. Alrighty, well, we covered a lot of great topics today. Thank you, Doug, for being on. I know it's after 3:00 in the morning in Vietnam.
Yeah.
So thanks for
that's a tough gig for someone that doesn't drink coffee.
I'm used to it from academia.
All right. So as always, everyone, thank you so much for tuning in and listening. We really do appreciate it. Feel free to like and subscribe on social media. You can always check out teslamotorsclub.com. You can become a supporting member on the forums there on the website. You can come and communicate, leave good responses, bad responses, bring on the hate, the love. We love it all. Mike and I can take it.
We got
as always, we miss you, Mark. If you're listening, we hope things are going well. I think someone asked what happened to Mark. Mark had work obligations come up. He's a busy guy, works in Hollywood, so he's unavailable to do the podcast for the time being, but he may be back in the future. He's always welcome back. Again, thank you to all our producers, except for Doug, who's on the show this week. No, thank you to Doug and Danny and Adam and Josh. If I'm not on the podcast next week, you'll know why. Thank you to all, James and all of our, all the behind the scenes folks. And again, really do appreciate it. And look forward to seeing you all next time.
Bye.
Bye.